Hello, squad. How we doing tonight? How are we doing? Skitty, Ellipti, Sino, Crenshaw. Hope you all are doing lovely. Good evening, Duality. Oops, didn't want to turn it all the way off. Just turn it down. How we all doing tonight? I had a lovely run, as I usually do before stream. I did my fastest miles per minute pace yet, which was, I ran, let me pull it up. I ran for a total of 2.5 miles, and I did 9 minutes and 19 seconds per mile. So, almost a 9-minute mile, which, I mean, it's kind of fucking cool. I'm pretty much done with that quadrant essay, by the way. I said I would, hell yeah. Alright, okay, let's hop into our fucking summary. I guess it is exactly 9 o'clock, so maybe we'll wait a couple minutes, just for anybody that still needs to flood in. I have been fucking chilling. I've been working on, a school project, or college project. I have to do another film, because I obviously had my thesis film that I had to do last semester, but this semester I have to do a workshop film, which is with a group. And we've started working on actual animation stuff, which has been fun. It's been a while since I've actually seriously sat down and done some animation stuff because I was so burnt out after the thesis. So I had a lot of fun just kind of keyframing and stuff earlier today. So that was nice. And I'm working more on some OC stuff, trying to nail out designs and all that. So it's been fucking fun. I've been playing, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of these, but if you played Minecraft back, I don't know, when would it have been, 2012? There were these maps called Collect the Wool or the Fill the Monument maps, and there was this one guy named Vex. Vex's collect the wool or collect the monument maps, and I've been replaying some of Vex's old adventure maps, or some of those old maps with some friends, and it's been a fucking blast. I used to watch playthroughs of them, back fucking 10 years ago, when I was, watching the golden age of Minecraft YouTubers. And it's been fun to relive that, playing on fucking 1.5.2 where you don't have there's no sprint. There's a sprint, but there's no sprint hotkey, so I have to double tap all the time when I'm so used to holding tab. So it's kind of funny. I'm so not used to it, though. I've had to get used to it because those maps are difficult. I played Spellbound Caves with a friend a while back, like 2 years ago, and then we recently played Waking Up. And then now we're playing Inferno Mines with a bigger group of friends, and we're kind of working through some of Vex's other maps we're planning to. So it's been fun. Okay, let's get started with a little summary of last chapter. So last chapter was chapter 12. The main thing with the last chapter, or at least towards the end of the last chapter, was we had the Halloween party, and at the Halloween party, Rose meets Kanaya. And it's a bit of an interesting start as Rose lectures Kanaya on how it is culturally inappropriate for her to be dressing like a, quote, sexy vampire. Upon Karkat reminding Rose that, hey, this is my vampire, my vampire coworker, Rose gets incredibly embarrassed and apologetic, and then afterwards they start flirting, and Karkat quickly gets out of there. He feels kind of weird, and Solix and him hang out on kind of like the little balcony area outside, and it ends up going from... It's so funny, I was writing the summary. Karkat like goes to start telling Solix about the dream that he had, but they don't even get to talk about the dream because they start bickering. And then they're black flirting, Karkat unknowingly, and it gets so tense with like so charged that Karkat slams his face into Solux's face, aka kisses him to shut him up, and then realizes his mistake upon immediately thinking about Dave, and backs up and backpedals fucking hard. And Solix insists, no, you hate me. And Karkat's like, I can never hate you. Yeah, Skitty, that's what it was. Solux feels so fucking bad because he's essentially got rejected and heartbroken. Karkat feels like shit because he thinks he just cheated on Dave. He goes to Dave immediately and go to apologize. Dave is pissed with him because Karkat upset Solix really bad. Dave was under the intention that A, they were already dating, and that B, Karkat would just date Solix and it was like their own demon thing and that'd be fine. Karkat calls them all stupid, all three of them stupid. Dave for just thinking that polyamory will just work out without any communication. And him obviously for being an idiot and hurting Solix's feelings. Solix is probably the only one that maybe gets off free, but Solix has his own issues. But there's no brain cells among the three of them, and he needs to go apologize to Solix and also figure out what the fuck is going on with his stupid feelings. Yeah, no one is thinking. And so now we are here, chapter 13, which is titled, "Oh my God." Oh boy. All right. Here we go. Let me adjust volume once more. Okay. All right. And okay. When Rose comes back from the party, you don't know if Dave or Solux told her what happened or not, and you'd really rather her hear it from you instead of through the grapevine. You sit her down and confess the whole thing. You're sure that you've ruined everything, but Rose just listens patiently until you've talked yourself out and are reduced to trembling with stress. Rose seems to think for a moment or two before she speaks. I can't say this is your proudest moment, she begins. More like the worst thing I ever remembered doing, but yeah, you agree miserably. But it seems to me that, at least with Solux, there's a lot of questions. I can't help but think that what you're running into here is some sort of species problem, Rose reasons. How do you mean, you ask? His feelings for you are plain, given how heartbroken he seemingly was, and I can't deny that I've not seen him act around other people the way he so often acted around with you. It makes sense that you're perhaps dealing with a specific demon kind of romance, Rose says. God, the thought that Solux had such strong feelings for you without you knowing just hurts on a deep fundamental level. He genuinely had seemed hurt when you changed your mind after kissing him, and you heard him cry in his dorm when you got there. You rejected the guy. But what's worse is you made the first move right before you did that. What the hell is wrong with you? He could have explained any of that to me, you groan. The guilt is making you feel sick. You kissed him, didn't you? What reason would he have to think that you didn't feel the same or understand how he felt? Rose points out. This is a good point, but you feel like you're going to explode. You lift a finger as if to pause the conversation and get up onto your feet. Quickly, you walk into your room and shut the door, and then scream. You scream for how much you hate yourself for this, for how much you know you deserve to suffer for hurting someone who has just helped you so far. You scream for being dumb enough to kiss him first. You scream for liking it when you have feelings for Dave. You just scream. When you're done and gasping for air, you stand and listen to your voice bounce around the room as it fades away. Your window remarkably hasn't shattered, but it is ringing. You let yourself back into the main room and look at Rose. Maybe, Rose continues as if you hadn't left to scream. He thought you already understood. Perhaps your species shares traits with demons. Perhaps your romantic inclinations as a species mesh with demons. Then why don't I understand how he feels, you ask her. If this was supposed to be some native feeling, wouldn't you have noticed before now? Wouldn't you have handled it better? Or the other alternative is the two of you were together before all of this. Perhaps he used to teleport away to Georgia to see you before the event, Rose suggests with a sly smile. Your face heats up at that idea. If anything, that makes you not knowing him when you saw him even worse. I would have been 13 or something, you mutter in protest. 13-year-olds do have feelings, I believe, she laughs. The thought that you and Solix could have been dating as awkward preteens is agonizing. Young love, or whatever that was, separated and reunited only for you to smash it all onto the ground. This is literally the worst night of your life. What do I do, Rose? This is a mess. My life is a mess. Please help me, you beg and flop onto the sofa miserably next to her. I don't know if this is a situation I can fix for you, Rose says sympathetically, and brushes your hair from your forehead. Please, I'll do anything, you whine. Rose seems to consider this for a moment, her glossy black lips pursing slightly as she thinks. I will help you on 3 conditions, Rose says. Name them, you say, and bolt upright. You need help badly, and you'll do whatever it takes to get it. First, you agree that you'll at least think about the feelings of Solux and Dave. Even if you don't end up with either of them romantically, they do both care about you, and they are, needless to say, important to me. I don't want to see them hurt, so try to be considerate. Rose begins. I can absolutely agree to that. I hate how I've acted, you nod. Secondly, you helped me meet your hot coworker again. Kanaya is devastatingly gorgeous, and I'm so mad that you didn't tell me that. I also need to know if she likes women. Rose goes on. I have no idea how I would have brought that up in a not creepy way, but okay. I also don't know how I'm going to ask her that, but I'll do what I can. You can absolutely come meet me at the library when we're working together and just talk to her then, you say. Thirdly, and most importantly, you don't breathe a word to anyone about my first conversation with Kanaya and that awful and cringeworthy misunderstanding. That was horrendous, and I'd rather no one else knew about it, Rose says, glancing around as if there might be someone within earshot. Perhaps growing up with Dave and Solix gave her that reflex. Great, now you feel guilty again. So just be considerate to Dave and Solix, give you an in to talking to Kanaya, and never mention that horrifically mortifying introduction you had with her. That's it? You check. It sounds fair to me, Rose says. It does sound more than fair. You press your hand to your heart and look at her right in the eyes. You absolutely mean what you're going to say, and you will hold yourself to it. I give you my word that I will try to be considerate to Dave and Solux, that I will help you see Kanaya again, and I will never, ever speak of your first conversation with her to anyone. You vow. Your skin tingles and you put it down to the way that Rose smiles at you. Excellent. I would say that our first joint area of recourse from here is to see if we can find out anything about demon romance. We can check the library, and failing that, my mother's personal library and notes would be useful. Your personal mission is to work out what your feelings are what your feelings for Solux really are, Rose insists. You want to protest that you don't have feelings for him, except that you do, you just don't understand them. But it's fine because you can ignore them. But you also kissed him first. I don't understand this shit, you say miserably. Yes, I know, but I didn't sleep last night and I'm tired and you should go think. So, good night, Carcat, she says. She pats you consolingly on the shoulder and gets up to go to her room. You take the bathroom first, shower, and wash the eyeliner off your face. It's smeared all over the place now. When you brush your teeth, you avoid looking at yourself in the mirror. You're not sure you can face yourself right now. Sleep comes easily to you when you get into bed, but you probably shouldn't be surprised that you don't want to be conscious. Although, it does mean that what takes over is your unconscious, which isn't much better. You dust yourself off and look around. You know he's close by, but you can't see him. Hello? Don't be afraid, you call out loudly. Your voice echoes over the open space by the road. A few birds explode out of the sparse tree line nearby and fly off into the dark night. Breathing in, you taste car fumes in the air, and if you squint, you can just see a vehicle in the distance, currently stopped. Maybe he's there. You walk closer, looking around as you go. It's dark, but you can't see anyone else here. As you come closer, you can see that the car is bright red, some muscle car that you don't know the make of. The lights are off in it, but when you reach it and touch, the thing is warm. It was running very recently. There, behind you, spinning around, you see nothing, but you can hear someone rushing away from you through the trees. Wait, come back, you say. Stumbling down the incline by the road, you make a break for the tree line. You can hear him up ahead, running from you. Please, you say, but he says nothing back. You skid to a halt before a fallen tree. It was huge before, but it's snapped in two now, and there's a dark shape on top of it. 4 glowing lights shine in the darkness from his face. It's okay, I'm not here to hurt you, you say. Your eyes adjust a little. It's a demon on top of that broken tree. The 4 horns are clear now, as well as the angry lashing tail. A growl builds and warps into a snarl as he looks down at you. Cautiously, you take another step forward. The demon moves, and you just catch a flash of a blade before he's on you. You should defend yourself, bring out your own weapon, but you don't want to hurt him, and you can empathize with why he's attacking you. You can't call your weapon out with a feeling like that. The demon's sword bursts through your chest, running you clean from front to back. He jerks it out and leaps back out of your range, holding the blade ready and staring at you. The wound burns, your skin sizzling and peeling where the blade went in, and you collapse to the floor as your punctured heart fills your lungs with bright red blood. The demon stares at you as you bleed out, and gasping for air, you try to communicate with a look alone that you don't blame him. You jerk awake, your dreaming stone under your pillow chiming to wake you up. You're still gasping for breath and sticky with fear sweat. You should write that dream down in your notebook, but you don't think you want to analyze a dream where Solux murders you despite you pursuing him. The meaning of that is pretty clear. The idea of trying to go back to sleep is not appealing in the slightest, especially given your subconscious mind seems to think making you pay for what you did, or seems set on making you pay for what you did. Instead of settling back in and hoping for better dreams, you just figure, fuck it, and get up. You dress, make yourself coffee, and stare out into the darkness through the window. Something white streaks across the night sky, and you wonder if it's true that wishing on a shooting star brings you luck. You close your eyes and wish fervently for things to get better. As you do, the sudden feeling... Sorry. As you do, the sudden feeling of being watched flares over you and then dies down, like someone walking over your grave or something. You shudder and stand up. The library is open at all hours, so you may as well go there. It's cold outside now, so you hug your jacket tight around you and quickly scurry into the empty office. There's always work to do, so it's not hard to just fuss about putting things in order, especially as you're not on the clock. You don't feel any need to rush. When the door to the office opens, you jump and look up. Miss Paint and Spade Slick are in the doorway. Carcat, what are you doing here? Miss Paint asks you. Good to see you back on this plane, alive and all, her other half adds, shutting the door behind him. I couldn't sleep, you say in answer to Miss Paint's question, and completely ignoring Spade Slick's statement. It's nice that he's pleased to see you all right, but he didn't exactly help you get out all that much either. Is something on your mind, sweetheart? You look a little troubled, Miss Paint asks and pulls out a chair. She delicately sits in it and brushes her hands over her skirt to straighten it out. You hesitate, and Spade Slick suddenly grins wide and sharp-toothed. Oh, I know what kind of problem he has. I know that look. That's romance problems right there. He grins and then only laughs harder at whatever look comes across your face and gives you away. I just messed up everything, that's all, you admit unhappily. I'm sure it'll work out all right, Miss Paint says comfortingly. I'd hope so, only I've got no clue what's going on at all. I don't understand this whole thing, and I don't know if it's some kind of species thing, or you cut yourself off with a frustrated groan. Wait, different species? Who you talking about? Spade Slick asks, his expression flickering with curiosity. You consider for a second the fact that Spade Slick is on at least semi-friendly terms with Solux, and then you figure that you shouldn't say anything about it at all. Never mind, you mutter, looking away. Oh, Solux. Yeah, demons have non-human romance, but it's basically what your kind has, or yours does it anyway, as far as I know, Spade Slick says, tapping his chin thoughtfully. Then why don't I understand it? You demand. You know you don't have feelings for Solux like you do for Dave. It's not the same at all. But as Dave pointed out, you can hardly claim to not have any feelings for him. Well, a lot of relationships and understanding of them is cultural. The understanding of marriage and relationships are very little like human expectations. Werewolf understandings and concepts of social bonds are vastly different from other species, and so on. You'll still have those same biological feelings, but without the social instruction manual, it can be hard to interpret them. Miss Paint explains. It's not like I can find him an instruction booklet on this, and there's none of his kind kicking around that I've seen to ask, and demons don't... Spade Slick trails off with a thoughtful one-eyed squint. Yes, Miss Paint prompts him. You'll like this. I might be able to find the book. Hold on, I'm gonna go freeze my dick off and look for it, but I'll be back. Spade Slick nods. He turns and opens a doorway right in the middle of the room and steps through and vanishes. Miss Paint blinks at the space her wayward husband was previously occupying and then turns to you. Well, there's no students in the library right now. Would you care to get your first extracurricular magic lesson? She asks cheerfully. You'll do anything to take your mind off your problems, so you absolutely settle for learning more magic. Miss Paint takes you out of the office and down the elevator to the restricted area, only she stops on the floor above it and lets you both out. A lot of the library's records are in here, back from before everything became digital as a standard. Other departments sent us their old records, and of course the university did have a library before this one was built in honor of Dr. Lalonde. We have all the records from that library. There are also computer servers and all that technical wizardry in here that is a little beyond me, if I'm honest. Miss Payne explains as the two of you walk down the hallway. She opens a door to what appears to be a chilly server room, but it also has a large book on a table. As you step through the door, you notice that the whole room is in a magic circle. What spell is this? You ask, pointing to the circle. This filters all information about the library into that book as a living record. The servers and computer system all feed into this. It is the heart of the library, Miss Paint says softly as she approaches the book. She presses her hands to the leather cover of the book. People have always looked for immortality, Carcat. People seek elixirs, tinctures, packs, and other such things. But we have immortality in this very building, and people overlook it. Every book in this library is part of someone's life, their thoughts, and a little bit of themselves. The majority of books in this building have authors long since dead, but you read them, and they're still here. As long as their books remain, they do as well, she says reverently. It's proof that they were here, even after everything else is gone. When I thought those rare books were in danger, I guess that's what I felt, even if it wasn't real. For all I knew, that was the last copy of something someone had written, and it was about to be destroyed. You agree? Miss Paint smiles at you, both fond and a little sad. That's why I liked you, Carcat. Now, this book is the very soul of the library itself. It knows where every book is within and without this place. Before I can teach you anything else, you need to learn how to listen to books. You need to understand the library itself, she explains. You look at the large book on the table and feel distinctly like it's looking back at you. What exactly does that involve, you ask? You're trying not to sound suspicious, but you absolutely are. The gods may be gone, but there are still spirits around. Consider this communing with a spirit to gain some power. Go on, she urges you and nudges you towards the book. You approach it warily. It gives you the same feeling that the books in the cages downstairs do. You feel wary, some part of you attuned to the power contained in these pages. Can I open it? You ask as you reach your fingers out towards it. The book shudders, its covers hinging up slightly, and its pages ruffling as if the wind caught them. Needless to say, there is no wind in this sealed room. The book opens itself dramatically, almost exactly in half. The pages and cover at the front side hit the tabletop with a thump. Your breath hitches in surprise, and you lean a little closer, and as you lean a little closer, you feel it does too. Finally, your fingers just brush the pages, and words rush off the page and up your arm, running under your skin. Your vision darkens as you feel something ghost over your mind. Your mouth tastes like old paper. You can smell leather binding, and your ears fill with the sound of pens scratching on paper. Pages rustle in your ears, and the image of stacked books in your room flicks to your head. How you were so lone, or how when you were lonely, you would read. With a whisper of written words, you would see a list of books in the demonology section, and you would see yourself seeking refuge from meeting Solux, hiding in the books and searching for their knowledge. You see yourself from the position of the books on the shelves. A book cut in half reports on your horror at seeing its damage, and others rustle their pages verifying the care you've taken with them. The great beast of the library smiles in your head, and you feel a papery touch run over your chest on the mark that still sits there. You would protect these books in this library. Ink rushes off of your skin and back onto the page, and reality kicks back in. You gasp for a breath and pull your hands back. Entirely by itself, the book on the table closes again, and you see Miss Paint smiling. It likes you, she says happily. Pressing her hand to your head, you can't help but feel like you've been invasively scrutinized. It didn't hurt, and it wasn't unpleasant as such, but you can't say that you liked it or appreciated it either. Like having a cat walk over your face when you were sleeping in bed. Not fun, but also not malicious as such. The thing wasn't trying to hurt you, just get a look at you. You're not keen on repeating the experience, though. That was the library? You ask a little breathlessly. Yes, Miss Paint nods. Oh, uh-huh, you say a little shakily, with one hand resting on the edge of the table. Also, you add, what the fuck? She's your boss, you probably shouldn't say that. As it is, she just laughs a little. You've had a book in your head now, and the library approves of you. Now that you've done that, you can listen to the books properly. I can teach you the most basic spell, and once I have, you'll be able to use it all the time. You probably won't have a choice about that, actually. Sorry, Miss Paint admits. You say. Come on, she says, and leads you back upstairs. When you say listen to the books, what do you... You trail off when the door to the elevator opens, and you feel it. The whispering. Perhaps you should say that you hear it, because whispering means... Well, it's a word for sound, isn't it? What you're experiencing has the same quality. It's hushed, secretive, a quiet babble too indistinct to truly pick out anything, like a quiet and distant reading, like many quiet and distant voices reading. Yet, as you consider this, you realize that the whispering isn't taking the traditional route through your ears. It seems to just be hitting your mind right away without bothering the rest of your senses. You step out and look around. Though you're in the hallway, you can see the shelves of the books off down the way and again. Although you can't hear it coming from there, you're sure that it is. Without thinking, you walk towards the shelves, and the feeling of words around you grows and grows. You wade in it, through it. Stepping between the shelves, the words wash over you on every side, as if you're in an underwater cave. The books thrum around you, the words and meanings empowered by a time and soul it took to make them. It's not oppressive or terrifying as you might have thought it would be. It just feels like you've opened eyes or ears that you didn't know you had until now. Your fingers grace the spine of a book at random, and it seems to wake up under your touch. You can feel that it's cared for. It's not on a required reading list, so it doesn't get loads of traffic, but people do read this book, and it's happy. You know just touching it that there's no danger to it, and you realize that you sort of knew how to do this already. You've checked over so many books that you just kind of got a feel for it. You were looking at the book itself as a living thing like you are now. You just didn't know that's what you were doing. A book on the shelf sticks out to you as wrong, and you move along to touch it. It's not damaged or bad or menacing, but it is in the wrong place. You know that even before you look at the number on its spine. Someone's put it back in slightly the wrong location. You remove it and slide it back down a few books, and it seems to settle. I thought you'd take well to that, Miss Paint smiles, and you jump as you realize she's been there the whole time. Thank you, you whisper, your fingers lingering on the books. The wave of mental noise from them has settled into a background sensation. Now, although if you listen right now, you can hear it just fine. She's given you a whole new awareness of something that's always been precious to you, and you couldn't be more grateful. Thank you, she says back in return with a gentle nod. She loves these books incredibly deeply, and it must make her happy to see that you feel the same. You ghost your fingers over the books at your side, marveling at the sensation. There's no way that you're not going to be all over the books in your room when you get back. You're probably going to reorganize them too. I think that's probably enough for one night. I don't want to overload you. You're welcome to stay, of course, and I have work to get back to, but you should probably try to sleep at some point, dear, Miss Paint says gently and pats you on the top of the head. You nod and she walks off, leaving you alone with the books. You wander the library, snaking up and down each row of shelves and fixing any books out of place. You can feel the warm approval of the spirit of the library, almost as if it was winding around your ankles like an affectionate cat. With your senses open and your body busy reshelving, your mind starts to wander. Naturally, it lands on your current romantic problems. The feelings you have for Dave are perfectly clear. You're romantically interested in him. Though you could wax poetic about those feelings, you think you're better off not doing so. Solix, though, you want to deny that there's anything going on, but you're the one who kissed him. Certainly he kissed you back, but you very much made that move. What do you do with that? What are you supposed to think? This needs to be broken down. The issue tackled in parts before you can see the whole. Solix perhaps that's too big. Finer grained descriptions and thoughts then. Appearance-wise, he's interesting. He's kind of dorky looking in the way that could be kind of humanizing, as speciest of a term that is. He probably could evaporate you with an attack if he wanted to, but he doesn't look like he could. He doesn't look as intimidating as he should be. His horns aren't especially threatening, but you'd say they sort of suit him. You certainly can't imagine him with a different set. His little eyes, which were once jarring, seem endearing, and between that and his main set, it makes him quite expressive. The fact that he also wears glasses is pretty entertaining too. His whole obsession with the number 2 and doubling things is amusing and endearing. The fact that he even goes so far as to wear odd-colored shoes and socks is another thing that makes him more of a dork. You trust him, to an extent at least. You don't trust him to be forthcoming with information or not to misdirect or mislead you when it suits him, but when he does tell you things, you generally believe what he says. When he explained about aspects with magic, you're certain he was being completely truthful. When you called him to rescue you, there was of course the fear that he might not come, but that was down to you not being sure if you could call at him or not, or if you could call him at all. You didn't really think that he'd leave you there knowingly. There's plenty of things that you don't trust him with. You wouldn't be surprised if he swapped sugar for salt when you were sitting down for coffee, just so he could laugh at you when you mix them up. You wouldn't be surprised at him tripping you up, making fun of you, being a jerk about things, deliberately winding you up and arguing with you. You like him, but you also spend a good amount of your time wanting to strangle him. He's so deeply irritating that you can't help but go back to something you've said before. It feels like you're allergic to him, as if every cell in your body reacts in irritation when he's being like that. And yet you kissed him. What are you supposed to make of that? The sound of a door opening and shutting makes you look around. You're in the middle of a room, and it sounded as if it was right behind you. When you turn, you see Spade Slick covered in ice, a long icicle dangling comically from the brim of his hat. And you're reminded of Solux when you threw your Ouija board away. Held in his hands is a large ice-covered book. I got you this. I wouldn't touch it with your bare hands just yet, not unless you don't want to keep the skin on your hands, he says gruffly and holds a book out to you. I have a bag, you suggest and hold it out. Won't you have to touch it to get it out? Spade Slick points out. Wait, he's right, and then you'd be left with the same problem. It won't thaw out in your bag, so then you're just getting frostbite in a different location. You shrug your jacket off and lay it on the floor. The psychopomp crouches down with you and drops the icy book on your coat. You wrap it up, the chill still bitter even through the fabric, and then toss it in your bag. That should be entertaining, Spade Slick says and blinks slowly. Thanks, you say uncertainly. I was winking. This is the worst thing about only having one eye. You can't wink and you have to tell people and it just ruins it, he says in a tone that you describe as sulky, even though that seems more of an apt to describe a little kid than an intimidating and possibly immortal psychopomp. Oh, you say, because you have to say something. That pestilent bitch ruined everything when she stabbed me in the eye. Spade Slick curses angrily. Who? You ask. Surely he doesn't mean his wife. You can't imagine Miss Paint stabbing anyone in the eye. Pestilence, he says. You already know Death. You met her. The horseman? You guess, really hoping he'll say no. Yeah, I hate her. She's my kismesis sometimes. Read the book. Later, Spade Slick says, and then just opens the door and fucking leaves like the rude asshole he is. You've not had nearly enough sleep to deal with this, so you take your things and head back to your dorm. You don't have class today anyway, so you can just try to sleep and not have to go anywhere. You flip the little sign on your bedroom door to do not disturb and close it. When you remove the still frozen jacket from your bag of holding, you drop it on the chair because it's painfully cold to touch, even through your jacket. You want to read the book, but you can't right now. For a moment you contemplate putting it in the microwave, but whenever you're contemplating microwaving literature, it's definitely time to stop what you're doing and go to sleep. You balance the book on your radiator under the window and change into your pajamas. You crawl into bed and tell yourself that you'll try to read it in the morning. As you lay in the dark, you can feel the whisper of your own books, and you can just tell that they're in the wrong order. It bothers you, but you silently promise them that you'll deal with them in the morning. Your sleep is thankfully dreamless, and you wake up late. The book that Spade Slick gave you isn't totally defrosted yet, and the frost over the cover seems very unnatural. You unwrap the book. It's warmed up enough now that it's just really cold as opposed to dangerously so. The decision you finally come to is setting it down in the sunbeam in your room and letting it warm up as you reorganize your own books. As you touch each one of them, you feel that nostalgic feeling of treasured memories or treasured moments reading them. Each one feels loved, although it's clear that your favorites have that feeling more intensely ground into them. You could identify all you need is kill with your eyes shut. No wonder Rose was able to use this one to track you down. By the time you're done, you decide that you're going to read the cold book no matter what. You've waited long enough. The book itself is large, about A4 size, and thicker than your clenched fist. The cover is hard to make out with the ice, but you can tell that there is some paper embedded in it ever so slightly under the surface of a bit of ice. With a little careful scratching with your fingertips and a huffing warm breath over it, you're able to tug the strip of paper free. Black handwriting on white paper greets you. On the one side, there's a short message. Carcat, stick the other side of this to your forehead. It'll only last 13 hours. Slick. Okay. Curiously, you turn the paper over and see a spell written out in a language you don't know. The letters squirm a little when you look at it, so you try not to. What else do you have to lose? Perhaps dumbly, you press the note to your forehead and concentrate on it. You feel a flare of something in your eyes, and you're pretty sure your eyeballs have just lit up. Not that you can see them, of course. Nothing seems to have changed. That's weird, but not harmful. You don't know what the purpose of that was, so you go to look down at the book. You try to listen to it and stroke your fingers over its icy cover. What book is this? What stories does it have? You feel the volume waking up as you look over it mentally, and as it starts to whisper in a way you've come to understand that books do, you can tell that it's doing so in another language. You try to listen, but the words are indistinct, although the tone is enticing. The pages of the book ripple, and the ice on it abruptly turns to steam, releasing a cloud of vapor upwards that immediately fogs your window. The book is now free and undamaged by the ice. Its cover is lacking a title or an author, but instead is divided into 4 with cardsuit pictures on it. Curiously, you open the cover and glance over what appears to be a page of contents. Immediately, you can see that the language is demonic, but as you look, the words seem to warp so you can read them. It's listing off titles of works in the book, which seem unreasonably long. Based on the titles, though, you can guess that this is a book of stories, presumably short stories. Flicking past the contents, you get to the first story. There's number 1 at the top, and a picture of a diamond. You begin to read. Durtik Eincom was a demon of good standing. His maker, Zimri Eadam, was a well-known demon who specialized in torturing souls. Durtik had taken the creativity that his maker had created him with and spent his working hours devising new and ingenious punishments for human souls. He was a man of intellect and power, and it is known that a demon of such standing is in need of a moirail. Durtik had just such a moirail. His name was Freenet Zephyr, and he was a small, slight, and terribly pretty. His calling was message delivery, and Durtik was so often worried after his moirail. He was not nearly as powerful, and Durtik thought him far too trusting. Despite, or perhaps because of this, their souls fit together like puzzle pieces, and Durtik could never pity anyone more than him. One late evening, Freenet let himself into Durtik's hive. The door was always unlocked for his soul. The door, as all of Durtik's possessions, was as charmed for the messenger as Durtik was himself. He stumbled through the doorway, trembling and wide-eyed, and Durtik knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. "My piteous one, what is wrong?" Durtik gasped in alarm, rushing to the doorway. Freenet shied back slightly, his long eyelashes wet with tears sticking slightly to his soft cheeks. "I ought not to have come," Freenet said breathily. "Tell me what happened to you immediately," Durtik insisted as he caught his moirail by the jaw. "The fuck are you reading? You know what a moirail is. Solix told you before. This seems like a story about 2 moirails, but the way it's written is weirdly old-fashioned. Or maybe it's just the spell that's letting you read it, translating it oddly. You skip past a certain amount of instances and reluctance to talk that is probably significant, but just seems to weirdly be belligerent to you. You guess you lack the social context for it. Your eyes catch when things seem to get weird and you keep reading again. Towards the pile, they stumbled down on it together, limbs tangled together so much they almost did not know who was who. Durtik pressed his nose to the vulnerable and soft underside of Freenet's jaw, turning his head upward so that eventually his fangs ghosted the supple flesh. Freenet gasped and melted as Durtik's hand trailed up his bare arm. You squint at the book. This is somehow the most erotic not porn you've ever read. Literally, all they're doing right now is having this weird, intense cuddle on a pile of junk in this dude's house, and yet it's written like it's this build-up to the textual money shot. It's not bad, it's just kind of weird. You keep reading through the weird, sort of pornographic descriptions. Plot-wise, not a lot happens for a while until Freenet finally breaks down and confesses that he'd been caught by some other demon who'd made him agree to some terrible deal. It goes into specifics that mean nothing to you, but it makes Durdick very angry indeed. As you read on, the story takes a sharp left from softcore cuddle porn to horrifying and a graphic murder story. Durdick eventually messily eviscerates this demon, but is nearly killed in the process. Freenet shows up in time and distracts this other demon so Durdick can take the killing blow. They embrace at the end and kiss, still covered in gore, and the story ends. On the next page, another starts. Huh. Alright, so this is demon romance. You lean back a little and puzzle over it for a moment or two. From what you know and from what Solix has told you, Demon Society is very much based on who's who and how powerful people are. Other than that, it seems pretty cutthroat. It makes sense that having someone who would have your back and both protect you and keep you balanced would be advantageous. That sounds nice and you get the appeal. You certainly love having friends and your relationship with Rose is very dear to you. This sounds like a hyped up version of that, and if you were wired to be into that, this story probably would have had you swooning. What this means, though, is that Spade Slick answered your relationship woes by giving you a book of demonic bodice rippers. That's something. Curious, you flick onwards. Eventually, the symbols on the page corners change to a heart instead of a diamond. You begin to read, but pretty soon it becomes clear that this is just regular erotic fiction, or regular, slightly violent-themed erotic fiction with an interesting array of guess what this one has in their pants with each new character. These stories do get you a little red in the face, and you can't say you normally spend your weekend morning reading erotica alone, but you can say you've also never done that. Look, you refuse to be judged here, okay? The point is that aside from a gratuitous amount of fucking going on, the emotions involved are familiar to you. There's some pretty juicy pining in there and pity confessions, although it's clear it means the same. It's referred to as red romance as contrasted to the pale diamond cuddle porn kind. Those feelings more accurately describe how you feel about Dave. That thought, of course, has you mentally replaying several of the scenes you just read with Dave there instead, and that certainly makes your face bright red. Yeah, that's accurate for how you feel about him. It's not accurate for you and Solix, though. Even as you think that, though, there's a part of you that feels a little off about that statement. Your eyes flicker to a line on the still open page, where one demon passionately makes out with another pressed against the wall. The similarity is pretty telling. The best thing to do is to distract yourself from that thought, so you push on through the book. You start the next quarter marked with a spade, and the first words of the story have you perk up. The mere thought, oh god, these names. The mere thought of Filgu? I'm gonna say Filgu. The mere thought of Filgu filled Zarnuk with a bubbling rage, so black and loathsome that she could hardly contain it. Filgu was a demon of high station, coasting on the tails of their powerful maker, spending their time on work that was of no real importance to anyone. Unlike Zarnuk's wearing job of possessing mortals on the material plane, while Zarnuk had to work for her whole being to do her work, Filgu did the barest minimum possible and was still better regarded. To put it bluntly, everything about them irritated Zarnuk. It would not have been so bad if they were not Zarnuk's flush's diamond, and as such they were forced to share each other's company often. Every moment listening to every self-important work coming out of Filgu's mouth was a soul-deep irritation to her. Hate, that's what Solix called it. This is about hate, and you have to admit that thus far the perpetual itch of animosity to demons is pretty similar to what's on the page here. You keep reading. So the hatred grew and grew stronger until Zarnuk could stand it no more. She bided her time and summoned Filgu to her hive under some pretense or another, leaving Filgu to assume that their mutual connections would be there. When Filgu arrived, they looked just as detestable as ever. Their slender form and irritatingly delicate features wrinkled slightly in agitation. Their one yellow eye swept the seemingly empty room, and they tutted a sound so oft repeated whenever they found anything mildly inconvenient, which for someone with a life as cushy as theirs was often. Zarnuk could take no more, and psionically slammed the door to her hive behind Filgu. The demon jumped, and in the time Zarnuk flew across the room in a rage and caught them by the throat, slamming them against the door. I absolutely loathe you, she hissed furiously and tightened her fingers around Filgu's throat. Filgu tried to choke out some curse, but Zarnak tightened her grip enough to stop it. Her mind was rushing with the possibilities. They filled her mind faster and faster as Filgu looked down in terror and anger. It was just so wrong for a demon of their ranking to be so useless, and it drove Zarnak out of her mind to see it, but she had every intention of fixing it. I'm going to destroy you, Zarnak vowed as Filgu's claws bit into her arm, trailing rust blood down Zarnak's arm. Zarnak pulled one hand back, eyeing Filgu's prissy shirt end. You read on with mounting horror, eventually covering your face with your hands and only reading as you peek between your fingers. For a good page, you're sure that what you're reading is. It seems clear to you that Filgu isn't happy about what's going on. Certainly it doesn't seem to be legal or consensual by human standards, but as the violent encounter goes on, you realize that it's supposed to be read that they're both into this, and moreover that this is some great romance. Indeed, the story warps into them being both very vocally in favor of whatever it is they're doing, and you're not sure if you misread it or if this is some culture thing you don't get. You don't feel comfortable about it, though. The language describing Filgu is as lavish as any other story. The point of view characters' fantasies and thoughts are treated just as much as pining and drama as the red and pale romance. This is meant to be romantic, but you feel sick to your stomach as you read. You only just make it to the end as the two declare their mutual hatred and kismestitude towards each other before you have to slam the book shut. You crawl backwards away from the book and shudder. You're well aware that different species approach romance differently, and there's no problem with that as long as everyone involved knows what they're getting into and feels the same. You're not speciesist about this. You wouldn't try to save any demons in any relationship like this if they're both happy. You won't tell anyone they're doing it wrong. But it feels wrong. This feels like the kind of thing that you should be ashamed about, and you feel even sick, though you've done nothing but read a book. As you remember that Solix insisted that you hated him, you shudder. Does Solix think you want that? Those two characters seemed at times moments away from killing each other. They absolutely gravely injured each other at times. Sure, you can put that down to a certain amount of demon toughness and regeneration ability, but still. The idea that Solix thinks you want to hurt him like that makes you feel cold inside. At one point, one of those demons stabbed a knife through the hand of the other to stop them from going anywhere. Now sure, you shoved Solix about and you've thought wistfully about strangling him a little or punching him in the shoulder when he says something awful. Thinking about it is one thing, but you never actually try to hurt him, and Solix is a demon, and a mortal one at that. Even so, you can't make yourself imagine wanting to put a knife in him, even though he'd certainly recover. You like him. Even when he pisses you off, you'd never want that. How does he think you'd want to hurt him like that? Does he want to hurt you back? You don't think he would. You trust him, but reading this makes you feel ill. You clutch your hands to your head and feel the cloying shame of being lectured about how that's a disgusting thing to feel, how demons should be ashamed, only they have no shame, and you're better than them, or should be, or only if you were better, nicer, more... You think you're going to be sick. It's an effort, but you fight down the nausea. You're not an idiot. Being alarmed by demon romance is one thing, but this strong of a shame, guilt, disgust reaction to it is absolutely feels like something you've remembered, something you had internalized somewhere in your past that's come back to bite you now. Part of you wants to keep reading the book out of spite, but you don't think you can face it. If that's what romantic hate is for demons, then you can't do that. You don't feel that for Solux, and you can't be that for him. For some reason, you're a little sad to feel that. Not that you want the things you just read, not at all, but you did kiss him first. You're not so stupid as to deny that. You are at least partly attracted to him, maybe more than partly. Looking back on it, perhaps part of your frustration with him, and almost compulsive need to irritate him back, was something like that thing they said about kids on a playground. Kids who don't know how to express their emotions, so they just torment the first person they're fixated on. It also means that you have to stay firm on your position of not being interested in dating him like that, because you don't hate him, which also means that unless Solix gets over your rejection that you won't be able to date Dave either, since Dave is very reasonably staying away from you romantically unless his Moirail is cool with it. Great. Good job ruining it, Carcat. You don't read more of the book. Instead, you just put it in place with the rest of your books and curl up on your bed. Rose doesn't see you until the day after, when you finally feel up to socializing at all. Maybe Rose senses that if she'd asked how you were, that you'd have scuttled back into your room with some bullshit excuse, so she doesn't ask. Have you checked your emails? Rose asks when you come into the main room. Ever? You ask, suddenly confused by the question. Specifically since yesterday, Rose clarifies, leaning over the back of the sofa to look at you. No, why? Is something wrong? You ask, distinctly under the impression that something must be wrong because everything is going wrong at the moment, isn't it? Seemingly, the Xenobio class being cancelled did all sorts of interesting things to the scheduling system. We've all been invited onto the magical history course. You should have gotten an email, too, she says. Obligingly, you take your phone out and flick a thumb across the screen to open up your emails, and find one from the university department. You read over the information that's more or less what Rose said, as well as information about the room it's held in and the 8 a.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, you say in horror. You're pretty firmly on the opinion that you don't agree with any day having 2 8 o'clocks in it. It's just not natural. You have the morning session. The rest of us have it in the afternoon. Let me see, Rose says in surprise. You show her your phone and she compares your email to hers. Sure enough, she's in a different session to you along with everyone else you're friends with, and you suppose Solux. This is the worst. You're wrong, of course. The worst thing is getting up in time for your 8 a.m. class the next morning. It's across the other side of campus, and naturally you've not been sleeping well with everything on your mind. You used Rose's smoothie maker to make what past you thought was a compromise between coffee and breakfast. That is to say, you have a travel mug with several bananas, an unpeeled apple, and instant coffee all blended together into a fine liquid regret. Past you is a fucking idiot. At least you find the room easily enough and sit down in a seat about 3/4 of the way back at the end of the row. You'll probably regret it later, as for some reason this room isn't tiered in seating despite it being closer to a lecture hall size than a classroom. There's also a weirdly wide gap between the sections of the desks. Whatever. You're just going to sit in here with your brain out drinking your shame breakfast abomination and waiting to be talked at. You're not a morning person. In fact, you don't even know what kind of person you are at all. Carcat? A voice asks. You turn and look up at a skinny guy. You think this is a guy you're looking at. Kind of androgynous, at least. Whatever, it's far too early for gender. The person has thick black plastic-rimmed hipster glasses and a purple streak in front of their hair. They knew your name. You say dumbly. It is you, isn't it, Carcat? Probably he from the voice, and if you're going to be making assumptions here. Yeah, how do you know my name? You ask. You've never seen this person before, and oh, wait. Unless I'm getting some reputation, like the guy who did that stupid shield thing in Mindfang's class or passed out on the C test, you groan. Something like that. Eridan and Ampora, they say primly, not primely. Okay, hi. Did you want to sit down or something? You ask. Eridan nods, so you shift all your stuff sideways down the desk and shift your butt over to the next chair. Eridan takes your space and sets their things down. You fiddle with your terrible drink for a moment and then figure, fuck it, what else do you have to lose? Feel free to punch me in the face for this, but you are a guy, right? I don't want to call you something you're not and be an asshole about it, you say quietly. You don't want to blast this conversation across the whole room like a tactless fucker. Eridan looks surprised to be asked and frowns when he thinks about it. I mean, yeah, sure, I guess. I have bigger things to be concerned about. I don't really care enough, he says with a shrug. Okay, cool, that's fine. If you change your stance on that, let me know. I am too. Man, that sounds weird. Guy, whatever. The words just keep happening, and you stare at horror as they roll out of your mouth. At least Eridan seems amused, and finally reaches out and puts his hand on your shoulder. It's fine, Carcat. He laughs a little. Oh, good, you whine and press your face into your desk. So, Eridan says slowly and sips at the fancy coffee he brought with him. Why are you here? In this room or on Earth, because sometimes I wonder, you groan, still with your head on the desk. Either, Eridan shrugs. Well, with this room, I got told I was assigned this class, so here I am, you answer. What about this place as a whole? Why are you in this university? He presses. I don't know, you admit and sit up. It's not as if I know what I want to do after this. I don't know what specialty I want to go into afterwards. I just got invited here out of the blue, and it was better than being stuck in Georgia doing nothing. Besides, I wanted to find out what I was. Georgia, Eridan repeats. Yes, I know, Georgia. I'm not going back there, you say with a grimace. Eridan pauses for a moment, watching you, and for a second it feels a little weird. What do you mean that you wanted to, or what do you mean you wanted to find out what you were? He asks. I lost all my memories after the event, but worse than that, worse than most people, I don't even know what species I was. I still don't. I've ruled out a few things, though, you say with a sigh. You know you're not a demon, although your life would probably be easier if it was. Then you'd be able to like Solix back, and like you're supposed to, hate him back. And if that was the case, you'd be able to date Dave, but that's not the case at all. No way, Aridin says softly. You look around at him and he's staring at you in alarm. He seems to realize he said that out loud and hurries to continue. Me too, he says urgently. You've never met anyone else who didn't know what they were. Certainly people were out there who didn't know because it was an option on forums, and it was people like them and you who memory retrieval scam artists preyed on. It's still fantastically rare, though, and to run into someone else in the same situation as you is incredible. Really? You gasp. Aridin looks excited as well, and you're about to ask him 1,000 questions when you hear... horses? There's a horse in the building. As they come through the wide classroom doors, you correct that to 2 centaurs. There's a taller one. He's huge and powerful looking with a gray-black coat and long, straight black hair that reaches down past his shoulders. His more human-like skin is the same gray tone that the rest of his body is, just without the horse hair. He is, at least, wearing a prim and proper black button-up and a sweater vest with an astrological symbol on it. The other centaur is smaller and younger looking. He's a dappled gray color, but from his long and straight black hair, as well as the sleeveless shirt with the same sign on it, you'd guess the two of them are related. They trot to the front of the room together and come to face the class. Ahem. The older centaur actually says ahem rather than coughing, but it's weird enough that it does actually get the attention of the class. I am Professor Darklear, and this is my teaching assistant, Equius the Hawk. I will be teaching you this course on magical history, the man says. He looks a little sweaty and nervous, but you weren't totally at ease when you had to speak in front of a class either, so you're not going to hold it against him. I will be running the main tutorial sessions, however there will be an optional class run by Equius for students who have questions or would like a more in-depth look at any subject we have covered. He goes on, and Equius nods at the front, his hands held behind his back tensely, as if he were at a military parade. You take studious notes as Professor Darklear starts going over the history of magic. It's similar to those family trees of related languages that you've seen before, with Germanic and Romance languages branching off, with one of those familiar following as branches. Perhaps the comparison is apt because a lot of magic seemingly was transferred through history by word of mouth. He explains how magic that's inscribed into ancient Egyptian tombs fits in with this school, but later, when the Egyptians and Greeks intermingled more, you can see more of their Hellenistic magic influencing things. It's genuinely fascinating and mingles in with what you've already learned from your magical languages course. But as you're writing everything down and making a mental note to binge read the course reading list, you can't help but notice that Aridin isn't writing anything. He's not even got a notebook out. He's instead just staring straight ahead at Darklear in the TA. Maybe he has one of those, eidetic? I know this word. Eidetic memories, or whatever that's called. You wish you had that. You have to take all kinds of notes to be able to remember your lectures. I'll see you around, Carcat. Aridin smiles at the end of class and walks off without you. He seems a little odd, but nice enough, and you wonder if you're going to end up making friends outside of Dave's little group. That'd be nice. The way if you end up screwing up so badly that they don't want to talk to you then, you'd still have other people to speak to. Wow, you're cheery today. You head back to your room and have a quick 45-minute nap before you have to go over to your alchemy class. Not that you really managed to have much in the way of a nap. The prospect of seeing Dave and Solix again after everything fills you with dread. Still, you have to go to class, so when you drag yourself through through the door, it turns out that you're the last one there. Hey man, Dave greets you cheerfully. The end of his nose is a little red, but he looks far healthier than he did last time you seen him. Solix isn't even looking at you. Instead, he's glaring a hole into the table in front of him. June is busy rummaging through her bag when you arrive and just gives you a quiet hey as you arrive. You look better, you tell Dave and sit down next to him. Googled Aridin out of curiosity and they look so dead inside. Aridin is certainly a character. Certainly a guy. Yeah, I feel a lot better. Still tired, but otherwise I'm back to normal. Dave nods happily. Good, you look like such a sad sack. Oh, good, you look like such a sad sack. Here's your pen. I finally found it, June says, reaching across the table and giving Dave a pen that has a fluffy bauble at the end. You squint at it and see that it has little sunglasses on it, too. You're not in the slightest surprised that bright red, fuzzy, glittery thing is his. It's so tacky, you know that he got it ironically. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. You nod and pull your notebook from your bag, dropping the thing on the floor by your tall lab chair. What about you? Rose told me that you had an 8 a.m. class. That is rough, Dave says sympathetically. If I remember from Pester Quest, Aridin is a purple prick. Yep. If you were here for Pester Quest, you know who Aridin is. It's a really good class. I just kill for it to not be so goddamn early, you say, and you realize your mistake when Solix flinches at the word. Sorry, you tell him immediately, but instead of replying, he just hisses at you like a pissed-off cat. Well, okay. Awkwardness settles over the table, and you're pretty sure that June knows whatever went down as well from the uneasy way she's looking between you and Solux. You're spared having to think of anything else when your teacher decides to begin the class. Rust is a problem for many buildings, machines, and vehicles, and being able to remove it without damaging the machine underneath is a very important skill. It will also let me teach you how to remove the results of a chemical reaction from an object. Rust, of course, is just oxidization. So that's what we'll be working with today. Now, if you turn your worksheets, we can start the process of designing the alchemical circles for this experiment, your scatterbrain teacher says. What worksheets? One student asks. Sure enough, you don't have any. 5 minutes goes by of your teacher distributing worksheets and then realizing that he also hadn't handed out any rusty items either, and goes back around to do that. You and Dave end up with a rusted wrench between you, and the two of you settle into working on how to remove the rust from the item without making the wrench into a pile of iron filings. A FAE student in your class has to work with latex gloves on to protect them from the iron. The questions on the worksheet guide you through the thinking that you need and give you the reference material to make sure you add in the right alchemic instructions. It's a nice little puzzle, and you and Dave get sunk into it pretty easily, going back and forth on how you think it should be done. When you're quiet, you can hear Solix and June talking over the same thing. You'll admit that at least briefly you end up distracted, glancing up and listening to the tones of Solix's voice when he talks to June. June cracks some joke, and you ache a little to hear him laugh, to see the way his eyes crinkle a little in amusement at June's wordplay. You don't have the same feelings you have for him that you do for Dave, so why does this feel so much like heartbreak? Other people around the room are starting to run their alchemy spells, and you're attuned now to the pull of magic around you when a spell goes off. A few people are triumphant, but a couple express disappointment, and go back to working on their spell. It's just background noise at first. You pay no attention to the people on the table behind you when they cast their spell. You know it didn't go right because they loudly whine that it did nothing. It did make your ears pop, though, and you work your jaw a little to even the pressure. You keep on with your work, carefully outlining the symbols you two have decided you need. Dave coughs heavily at your side, turning his head to cough into his sleeve. Hey, are you okay? You ask, because it sounded worse. That sounded worse than you've heard from him so far. It sounded as if he couldn't breathe right, which is far more concerning than the chesty cough he had before. Yeah, a little lightheaded, Dave gasps as he tries to get his breath back. He clutches the desk to steady himself and shakes his head a little, but he doesn't seem to get his breath back right. Dave? Solix asks, looking up. Dave's hand grips the table tighter, and your eyes widen to see that he's hyperventilating. Around you, other students are struggling for air and fanning at their faces. Something is wrong. A light in the ceiling flashes red, and your teacher grips onto the wall. We need to get outside, your teacher wheezes. Solix bolts upright and flicks his hand. A flame appears and instantly snuffs out. There's no oxygen in here, he whispers. June stumbles to her feet, and you catch Dave as he starts to keel over towards you. Solix pulls him from your arms, already at Dave's side, and vanishes in a puff of smoke, and you see him reappear in the hallway. Your fellow students are rushing for the door, but the lack of oxygen is making it hard for them. People are bumping into each other, tripping over bags, and pinballing off the tables. It's like everyone is suddenly very drunk and getting worse by the second. Out of habit, you grab your bag and hesitate, trying to leave. Something is so clearly wrong here. Some spell must have misfired. Yet you feel fine. You can breathe without any problem. Off to your left, a girl collapses on the ground, and instinct compels you to run towards her. She's out cold and struggling to breathe, so you half carry, half drag her to the door, foisting her on a student standing just outside who is seemingly fine now. You turn, still in the classroom, and see a few other students too dazed to make it all the way to the door, so without thinking about it, you rush over and shove them out the doorway, going back over and over again until everyone is out. Minutes later, you're hauling the last unconscious person from the room. You realize you're not out of breath at all. "Give him here," June insists, and you lower the student, a human guy, to the ground as gently as you can. June scoots over and gives the guy mouth to mouth until he coughs and gasps back into life again. "How did you do that?" your teacher asks you seriously. "I don't know," you admit. "Apparently, you don't need oxygen to live. That's new." "What happened?" one of the students asks, her eyes wide with shock. My best guess is someone tried to remove the oxygenation that caused the rust and remove the oxygen in the room. The room is magically insulated, so it wouldn't spread out of here, but it would have affected the whole room. Gases are like that, your teacher says, still sounding a little out of breath. If all the oxygen went out in the room, suddenly that would explain why your ears popped. It'd be a sudden change in pressure. "So you don't need to breathe?" Dave asks. Solix is supporting him against the wall, but he looks mostly fine now. You guess perhaps the illness he just got over made this worse for him or something. "I guess it's not. It's not news to me. Or I guess not. It's news to me." You shrug helplessly. "You mean you didn't know?" Another student interrupts. You look over and see that it's the first girl you dragged out of the room. She's sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall and staring at you. "I didn't know. I don't know what I am. I recently found out I'm fireproof, and I didn't know that," you admit. "You're a disaster." "But you dragged me out and came back for him," she points at a nearby guy. "And me," another adds. "Me too," someone else chimes in. "And you didn't know you were going to be okay or how long you could breathe for? You just did it anyway?" The girl presses you. They're all staring now. I couldn't just leave you in there. I had to do something," you say awkwardly. "Fucking hell," Solix mutters, but he vanishes in a flash of smoke before you can look around at him. "Well, yes, I think that the class is probably over for today. I'm going to have to re-oxygenate that room without overdoing it, so yes, best go." Your teacher nods, which is good, as Solix had already left. "Thank you so much," the girl you pulled out says, standing up and smiling gratefully at you. You flush in embarrassment as the others you rescued do the same. It's not like you did anything special. You're supposed to save people in danger, and you were fine, weren't you? So they shouldn't be thanking you. You're pretty sure you're already scarlet when Dave pulls you away. "Come on, I'm buying you a drink, Mr. Hero," Dave says, his hands over your arms. "Oh, I would come too, but I forgot my wallet in my other pants. Gotta go," June says, fantastically unconvincingly. You're not swayed any further into thinking her excuse is genuine when she shoots you a very obvious wink as she leaves. "Are you sure? Solix," you mumble. You're pretty sure you and Dave are supposed to stop doing anything close to dating ever since you fucked up with Solux. It's a totally platonic coffee for a guy who saved lives, for sure. Dave nods and pulls you towards the door. You go along because you're weak, and also standing near people wanting to thank you is awkward, so you'll take the excuse. "So, you do not need to breathe at all, or do you breathe something else in the air that's not oxygen?" "Hey, hold your breath and see," Dave suggests. It's a reasonable experiment, so as you two walk through the double doors out the building, you take a gasp of fresh air and hold your breath. Dave watches you curiously as you walk, and you're acutely aware that you should be breathing, but you're not. Solix doesn't need to breathe, but he always does. I found out one summer we had a jacuzzi. I say had. My mom still has it. It was far enough from the house that June could come visit, and Mom wouldn't spaz out too much, Dave says. He pauses and frowns. Okay, she still didn't like it, and she chased her off once, but still. Anyway, June kept pranking Solix, so he hid in the jacuzzi under the water one time for ages until she got scared to get revenge. Or she got in and scared her to get revenge. The point is, he didn't need to breathe in at all at the time, but he still does the rest of the time. So maybe you're like that, like it's an optional thing, but obviously you need it to talk, and people notice when you're walking around not breathing properly, Dave goes on. You're still holding your breath as you walk, and though you're aware you should be breathing. Are you still not breathing, though? Really not at all? It's not like some prank and you've been doing it this whole time, let me ramble, Dave says, holding the back of his hand near your face, close enough that if you were breathing, he'd feel it. I mean, that said, you could just keep letting me talk, or keep I mean, that said, you could just let me keep on talking, because I know I can talk at an Olympic level when I want to. Not that Rose is any better. She's a verbose, purple prose, and also purple text machine. Obviously, I don't remember Mom teaching us to talk, but I can only assume her instant response was regret. Dave laughs at his own joke. Okay, I'm gonna stop now because I'm unnerving my... Oh, this is Carcat. Okay, I'm gonna stop that now because I'm unnerving myself, you say in a rush and instinctively start breathing again, apparently without any need to. That is wild. I really want to know what you are, you know? Dave whistles. Yeah, you and me both, you mutter. Dave holds the door to the coffee place open, and he pushes you towards a free table as he goes to get drinks. It's not like he pays every time. You take turns, but he always likes to order the dumb drinks, so you've resigned yourself long ago to reserving the table and accepting whatever pretentious concoction that he brings you. It feels a little like a date, and you hate yourself for thinking that. When Dave eventually returns after some time, he sets two tall plastic frappe cups down with domed lids. Both of them have whipped cream in them and are a chaotic clash of pastel colors, each drink with two or three in each. You sigh and grab the purple, green, and blue one with glittery sparkles in the cream, leaving Dave with the one that's green, red, and buttercup yellow. One day, one of the people working here is going to strangle you, and the courts will rule it as justifiable homicide, you warn him. Maybe. I just watch to make sure no one spits in the drinks in revenge. They don't. I think this place is too cool for that, and I do watch, Dave adds as you pause, halfway to putting the straw in your mouth. You narrow your eyes at him and drink from the straw all the same. For all that it looks impressive and Instagrammable, the thing doesn't taste fantastically special, just fruity and creamy. You're suspecting there's no caffeine in here at all. Are you sure Solix is okay with this? You ask warily. No, look, he said that I don't need to stay away from you anyway. I'm pretty sure he'd still be hurting if I went and actually dated you, but he wouldn't say I couldn't. This is my rule, not his. We're cool. This is totally just a platonic thing. Just guys being dudes, dudes being guys. Dave rambles. You decide not to point out how the thing he's referencing ends. Still, you're kind of a hero today, huh? Dave goes on. Ugh, don't. I didn't do anything special. People needed to get out, so I helped. You sigh. Okay, but hear me out. It is special, Dave counters. It isn't, you argue. Then why were you the only one doing it? Solix got me out, but no one else helped anyone. In fairness, I couldn't even see straight at the time, but no one who got out and recovered ran in to help as you were tossing people through the door and going back for more. You were the only one, making it special by definition, he reasons. You open your mouth to argue. It's hard to come up with what to say because you can see that logically he is right. You didn't do it for that, and you didn't think about what you were doing either. People needed help. You were able to do so, so you did. It's what you should do, isn't it? Why should you get praise for something you're supposed to do? It isn't as if you think less of people for not going back in. June was helping by giving CPR, and you can see that people would be reluctant to go back in case they thought they got in the way or passed out themselves, which would only have made more work and worsen the situation. As you're wrestling with how to counter Dave's very rational yet somehow surely wrong argument, he pulls his straw out of his frappuccino. I guess that maybe you have a point, but it doesn't feel like I did anything, you say with a frown. As you're talking, Dave licks his straw clean in a way that has your mind immediately punted into the gutter. Who cares about the very rational point that you cannot date Dave, because he has very sensibly decided that it'd be a bad idea. Clearly your brain doesn't care, because all that's going through your mind is the various fixation around, oh shit, hot boy tongue licking the thing, oh god, what if it was... Well, at least you're not trying to talk right now, because who knows what the fuck would come out of your dumb mouth now that your brain is on that one track of thought. Actually, your brain probably isn't part of you that you should, or your brain probably isn't the part of you that you should be blaming for this diversion, is it? Dave reaches across and gently whaps you on the nose with the end of his licked clean straw. Bad Carcat, except that you did a good thing. Also, that Dave is always right, Dave says seriously. I refuse to accept anything from anyone talking about themselves in third person, you grumble, trying to force yourself to speak sensibly. Dave accepts your judgment against people who speak in third person, but Dave thinks that it might be growing on him. Perhaps he'll talk like this way all the time from now on, Dave says, waving his straw around as he talks. Well, this was nice. I'll be talking to you never again, you sigh and start to get out of your seat. Aw, you're no fun, Dave snickers, but that's not in third person, so you'll stay in your seat for now. I'll live with that somehow, you say. So, what was your new class like? Can't believe you got the early slot. That's some shit luck, but now you can give me the details beforehand. Dave asks. You settle in your seat and sip at your drink as you tell Dave all about the class and fill him in on your interesting centaur instructors. You even mentioned that you might have made a new friend in class, too, although him already knowing your name was disappointing. Well, either people heard about the cool shit you pulled in being immune to fire and defending Rose from Mindfang, or you have a stalker. Which of those do you want to be true? Dave reasons. The first one, I guess. I suppose the chances for me to be a normal student was never really there, huh? You admit. Don't sweat it. Normal is widely overrated, Dave assures you. It's getting closer to lunch, so Dave suggests food. No sooner have you agreed that it might be a good idea than he sprung off to get some. You watch him lining to pick food out, and something about the way the sunshine filters through the glass in this coffee shop with its sun catchers and other trinkets, it just makes Dave look a little ethereal. Realistically, you know he's pretty unusual looking, but you forget about it most of the time, instead just appreciating that he's attractive. Given how Rose and their mother looks, you suppose that Dave must have some kind of albinism, but the way it makes him look, you would almost think that he isn't fully human. He has that not quite earthly vibe that the Fae can have, where they feel a little too perfect and too real to actually be human. Then again, Rose gives off the same kind of vibe as well, but then she is a very pretty girl who is massively intimidating, so it could be just that. He could just be very magically gifted, his twin is a seer, and his mother is the most powerful witch alive as far as you know. Dave walks back to you with food in hand, and you realize you spent the whole time staring at him like a creep. Thankfully, he doesn't seem to have noticed. Dave drops 2 plates on the table, one a mushroom and mozzarella ciabatta thing, I've never seen that word, ciabatta thing, and the other much the same, but instead it's a chorizo and some other kind of cheese in it. Take your pick, Dave invites you, and you pull the mushroom one closer. I was hoping you'd take that one, Dave admits, and eagerly takes a bite of his own sandwich. That reminds me, how much do I owe you? You ask, and bite him into your sandwich as well. It's really nice. This place actually does do really good food. You should eat here more often. Or well, you shouldn't if you want to save money, but it is very good. Don't worry about it, Dave says through a mouthful of food. You swallow your bite of food before speaking because you have some manners, damn it. But it's my turn. You got the last one, you point out. It hadn't been an explicit agreement to alternate when you started doing your post-class coffee trips, but it fell into that pattern. I might not owe you my life, dude, but several people in our class do, so the least I can owe you is lunch, Dave tells you, and from the way he's talking, you can tell he's not going to be swayed from this point. It's a tone you know well from Rose. They don't often do that overly similar twin thing, but every so often you see it. People are going to think I'm even... People are going to think I'm even weirder now, you say unhappily. People are going to be grateful, seriously, Dave insists, and screws up his napkin to throw at you, because he's super mature. You throw it back because you're just as bad. The thing goes back and forth a few times before it goes too far and gets lost. Either way, you're both giggling afterwards. Warm sunlight plays across Dave's cheeks and your breath catches. This feels like a date, but it's not a date, can't be a date, not after what happened, but yet it feels that way. Man, this sucks, Dave mumbles and glances off. What does? You ask. Dave doesn't look back at you because he's looking so far away you can actually see the red of his eyes when he looks out of the corner of his eye. He turns to face you again and watches you for a second, long enough that you wonder if you've got something on your face at least. Self-consciously, you rub at your cheek just in case. Not being able to date you, Dave says finally, his voice very quiet, but very, very earnest. What? You squeak. Dave leans forward a little on his elbows. Heat flashes up the back of your neck, and for all that you seemingly don't need to breathe, to survive, you feel a little breathless with him looking at you like that. Because I really wish I could. I know it's my rule and all. Solix didn't say no, but I can't do that to him. I know that I know that, and you know that, but it doesn't mean I don't still... Dave trails off, and you get the feeling that he's very deliberately looking you over. You don't know what on earth you're supposed to say to that. Telling Dave that he apparently has bad taste in men will either seem like fishing for compliments, which it isn't, or an insult to his beloved Justin Timberlake, an argument you really don't want to hear. Instead, you just stare back at him, with your face no doubt clearly telegraphing how you feel about the concept of him liking you and wishing he could date you. Sorry, Rose kept going on about how I shouldn't just vocalize every thought. Dave mumbles, clearly embarrassed. I think Rose has other things on her mind now, you say. Oh, Dave says, clearly curious. Ah, you immediately remember you promised not to speak about it. You feel very strongly that you should stick to that promise. Don't worry about it. Oh, hey, I meant to say that I got taught cool library magic. You tell Dave, and he happily takes the diversion. You tell him about what Miss Paint taught you, and although you leave the book of demon erotica that apparently Spade Slick thought would be a good thing to give you, you don't want to admit to Dave that you've read some of them, much less have to recount from memory to him in a public place. Of course, that brings up the possibility of saying anything like that to him in private, which is, no, bad brain, stop that. The end result is you end up talking until it's time for you to work at the library, and Dave goes off to his history of magic class. Still felt like a date. You walk into the library and toss your bag into the office, kick the door shut behind you, and fall into your seat. There's a stack of books waiting for you, as if accusing you for not working, but you can only stay slumped over your desk. 5 minutes later, Kanaya walks in the room and spots you there. Well, you seem in a good mood, Kanaya notes without inflection. My life is ruined, you tell her dramatically. How so? Kanaya asks, hanging her bag up neatly and unwinding her long jade scarf from her neck and hooking it over a peg by the door. Hot boys have destroyed my ability to think, you complain. I'm afraid I can't relate. Kanaya shrugs and goes to her desk. Your mind tingles with your promise to Rose and you sit up, swiveling around in your chair to look at Kanaya. You're into girls, right? You ask. Do I give off that vibe? Kanaya asks, watching you carefully. You're put in the mind of a hawk watching a mouse. In that you're very pretty and also very intimidating, which seems to track with all the girls into girls that I know so far. But also, you can't relate to hot boys destroying your life, you tell her, because apparently those are literally the words you said. Kanaya's mouth quirks into a smile that she's obviously trying to resist, and it exposes one of her fangs ever so slightly before she laughs. It's a lovely sound. It might sound strange to think that, and it's not as if you're attracted to her in the way that you are with Dave, but she is very pretty, and you do like her an awful lot. It makes you glow to hear her laugh. Not literally glow, of course, not like she is now. I suppose you could say that about me, yes. I forget what the term is now. Sapphic? After Sappho. She does have lovely poetry, and I do wish I could have met her. Kanaya says, or sighs wistfully. You're pretty sure that she just means that in the way that you wish you could have met any number of historical authors. Surely she's not as old as that, right? Still, you did what Rose asked and found out if her crush was into women after all. Not that you think it needed to be affirmed, given how she and Kanaya were talking to each other before, but you're hardly one to criticize people about how well they handle their romantic attractions, are you? You move the conversation onwards to telling Kanaya that Miss Paint inducted you into library magic, and you got to meet the spirit of the library and hear the books. Kanaya laughs when you confirm that you had to go home and reorganize your own. Apparently the same happened with her. The two of you chat as you work, and you find that this time you only need to touch the books that have been returned to know whether they're in good condition or not. They speak to you. You can tell they're happy to be home, but enjoyed being read all the same. You silently greet them back warmly and set them in the right book carts to put back in their place once again. It's nice being here. You can feel the library around you as a living thing, and it has a gentle hum to it that you're acutely aware of now. When you come back from replacing some of the books on their shelves, Kanaya asks you a question, one you suspect she'd been building up to for some time. So, that girl at the party, Rose, your roommate, Kanaya says. Technically not a question, but you know she's fishing for more information. She was really mortified about the... You break into a cough. Kanaya gives you a look of concern, but you think you just, choked on your own spit or something? Well done, you. Are you okay? Kanaya checks. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just saying before, I forgot how to talk for some reason. Rose was just really mortified about the... Pain flashes through you, and white fire streaks out from between your teeth, which are suddenly struck together. You clap your hand over your mouth in horror, and the pain and fire immediately pass. Carcat? Kanaya exclaims and rushes over to you. What the fuck was that? You whisper. You touch your mouth, but you seem unharmed by that fire, even though it didn't look like normal fire. I don't know what caused it. Are you sure you're all right? She asks, looking at you with concern. I think I'm fine. I don't know what happened. I just choked up and then there was fire, you tell her. Repeat what you said. Maybe it was a spell or something you didn't realize, Kanaya suggests. You don't think it was, and you can't remember what you said word for word anyway. I don't know. All I was doing was talking about how Rose was so embarrassed about the... Your teeth slam together again, and once more you breathe out fire. This time you have the sense to put your head between your knees as it happens, so there's no chance that you're going to breathe fire on the books by mistake. Carcat, Kanaya yelps. She pulls you into the middle of the room and starts looking you over, but once again, you're pretty much fine afterwards. But you can't talk to Rose about what happened at the party. The only time you've ever seen anything like this happen is with Solux. Oh, shit. 1 second, you mumble and pull out your phone. Dave, I need to talk to you right now. Dude, I'm in class and messaging you under the desk. Chill, what's up? I need to know if Solux has cursed me because I'm suddenly spitting up fire, and the only person I've ever seen do that is him. I'm really freaking out here, Dave. What? No, he wouldn't do that. Look, I'll ask him. Thank you. He looks confused and said he didn't do it. Look, not that I'm happy to have a distraction from my really upsetting TA, but I'm not really sure what to do here. I don't either. I'm just suddenly spitting out fire and my teeth keep locking together when it happens. Solux says he'll be right there. For a moment, you don't know if Dave means hell or heal, but given that it's Solux, it could be either. No sooner have you finished that thought than Solux appears in the library. He gives Kanaya a weird look for a moment, but then turns his focus to you. Come here, he tells you. His voice is pretty cold and standoffish, but he's talking to you at least. Obligingly, you come closer, and Solux reaches out and grabs your arm. He pushes your sleeve up to get a look at it. As he twists your arm a little to get a better look, your deal with him flares up. Only now it's not alone on your arm. Something written in a strange script glows white under your skin. Where did that come from? You yelp, peering at it. Solux breaks out into loud and obnoxious laughter, letting you go and wrapping his arms around his middle to contain his outright cackles. Solux, what is it? You demand. Are you cursed? Did someone do this to you? What happened? Don't look at me. You did this to yourself. Solux laughs. What's that supposed to mean? You snap. If you know the answer, please tell us. It was clearly painful when the fire came out of his mouth. Can I interrupt sternly? Don't. I know it. I generally avoid that by not making stupid deals and then trying to break them. If you didn't want this to happen, you shouldn't have made a vow you didn't keep on intending. Or you didn't intend on keeping, should you? Solux says smugly. What did... I promised Rose I wouldn't... You trail off in horror. You did this to yourself? And then you did, Solux grins. But it's Kanaya, she was there. I'm not talking to anyone who doesn't know about the... You falter as you feel a warning tingle in your mouth. Well, if you'd wanted to have that exception, you should have vowed not to speak about Rose and Kanaya's first conversation to anyone who wasn't already aware of it before that time. You also should have specified exactly what counts as the limits of that conversation that you can't talk about, or define talk, because if you're going to have the vaguest as shit and throw words like anyone and ever, this is what you get, Rose tells you tartly. You can tell he's enjoying this. But I'm not a demon. How did I do this? You whisper. You're not a demon. That's not a deal. It's a vow. Solux says as if you're especially stupid. The fuck does that mean, you bag of ass? I can't do shit like this until suddenly I apparently can? Make it stop, please. Help me fix this. You insist, holding your arm out towards him. Solux folds his arms and narrows his eyes at you. First of all, you specifically stated the end terms for your vow. Maybe you should read them, Solux tells you. You open your mouth to protest that you can't read the weird language, but you focus on the words and they shift like magic, like a magic eye picture. What is there no longer looks like gibberish, but gently glowing words that you know exactly what they say. I, Karkat Vantis, will give you, Rose Lalonde, my word that I will try to be considerate to Dave and Solux, that I will help you see Kanaya again, and I will never ever speak your first conversation with her to anyone. Those are your own words to Rose. You can see clearly that you've said you will never ever speak of that conversation. That's the defined end condition. Second of all, I can't undo it. If it was a deal, maybe I could help if I wanted, but as it happens, it's not a deal. It's a vow, which means that I can't do anything about it, which is good, because even if I could, I don't want to, Solux says coldly. What do I do? You whisper. Stop being a fucking liar, I guess. Or don't. And set your mouth on fire. See if I care, Solux says sharply, and then vanishes in a flash of smoke and apple. Maybe you should just never talk to anyone ever again. That could be a good plan. Why did you vow to Rose to never speak of my first conversation with her? Kanaya asks curiously. Now that's not strictly against what you managed to write into your skin of your own arm, but maybe it might still ping it given how badly worded it is. But even if it doesn't, you ought to outright tell Kanaya that Rose is romantically interested in her, and then Rose might maim you for being so blunt. Either way. I think I'm not going to answer that for my own well-being, but you should probably talk to her, though. I'll give you her Trollian name, you say evasively, and go to find some paper to write it down. You've just finished handing it to Kanaya when Solix reappears with a scowl on his face. And another thing, he blurts out angrily. Ah, you yelp, because he did just appear out of nowhere. Thanks for accusing me of cursing you when I didn't do anything to you, he hisses. I know, that was shitty, I was scared, I'm sorry, you say, but Solix cuts you off, pointing his finger right in your face, so it's less than an inch from your nose. Don't you dare apologize to me like you're better than me. And if you're going to accuse me of cursing you, then I will, Solix snaps. All of his eyes open wide and his lips move as a breathless sibilant flow of sound that you can't break into words flows out. You feel magic crawl over your skin and snap, and then all at once, Solix is gone. Well, great. This is just fantastic, you say miserably. I'm sorry, Karkat. Do you want me to try to get him to reverse whatever that was? Kanaya asks. You sniff and shake your head. You probably deserve it. Whatever it was, maybe he didn't even curse you and is just trying to make you paranoid. How about tea? Kanaya suggests instead. That'd be great, you say, not admitting how wobbly your voice may not be. You take a seat and contemplate your many failures in life. You really wish Dave would have told you about how he thought things were gonna go with you three before, so you could at least have had some heads up and not dove headfirst into the worst timeline. Kanaya hands you your mug of tea, and you thank her. The mug is about an inch away from your lips before it snaps off suddenly from the handle and shatters on the floor in a mess of tea and broken crockery. It's not a random mess, though. As you look down, you see that the steaming liquid and the shards of broken mug have perfectly spelled out the words, useless shit weasel, on the floor. I'll get a mop, Kanaya says after a moment. End of chapter! Bada bing ba boom! There we go! This is a fun one. We met Aridin. We met fucking the new professors. We got some stuff. We learned a lot. Fun things. This was a fun one. It was. It was a delightful little chapter. It wasn't little. It was pretty hefty. Fun chapter. We got the fucking... we got the fucking demon porn book. Troll names are so fucking... People make them so difficult to pronounce. Or they just throw letters and I have to fucking figure it out. But the troll romance books were fun. The little bits of erotic fiction. I opened stream as soon as he started reading it. It's great. But yeah, we got some fun stuff this chapter. Next chapter is chapter 14, which is Thriller. And it is a little bit shorter than last chapter, but not by a lot. We're once again hitting these, a chunk of pretty long, hefty chapters. So tomorrow's Friday. Sino, are we doing Friday? You usually don't do Fridays. Because usually we just skip to Monday. So we can just skip to, we can, I don't know if you're available this Friday or if you want to keep going. You'd rather not do Friday? Okay. Then our next stream will be Monday. Our next stream will be on Monday at 9 p.m. EST. We give a little, thankfully not too crazy of a cliffhanger, kind of just a little fun little ending. Here's some stuff to think on because we learned some stuff this chapter. And yeah. So Bob Bing Bada Boom. That is the end of stream for me. I will talk to you all fucking Monday, 9 p.m. So yeah, have a lovely night. Bye, good night. Wow.